just want to begin first by saying I'm still grading the last few of the assignments I have given over the last couple of weeks, but I have enjoyed reading your insights into what you feel the news is all about, the future of news, where you get your news, how you compare news. So I have really enjoyed reading all of your submissions, and I should be able to be finished with those today. Now, some of you, I did make some comments. Basically, you received the full 100 points if you submitted it, and you submitted it on time. I am very particular with deadlines. This is an online course, and basically you have about 1 to 2 assignments a week. You have to structure it and be organized the way it's going to work for you. So when I hand down the assignments, usually around Sunday or Monday, you need to kind of, I know you're busy, I know everybody has other classes, everybody works, some people have families, I get that, but we do too. And it's just best if you try to get yourself organized and realize that there is a deadline to be met. In our business today, every second, every minute is a deadline. It's really no longer about the hours much anymore like it used to be. Every moment is a deadline. So you need to be working toward that and not try to put off assignments until an hour before it's due. That's not going to be effective for you. Also, I have made some notes on some of your submissions. You might want to consider having somebody proof your work. I will try to, if it becomes too much of a problem, and if I am noticing a lot of this in various submissions, but I have noticed some already, run-on sentences. Run-on sentences are when you don't use punctuation. There's no comma, there's no period, and even some of you are using commas in place of periods, and that's wrong. So I've tried to, if I found those, if those stood out quite a bit in your assignment, then I made a comment about it. So just because you might see a 100 in your score, make sure you click on the little icon, because that's how you're going to be able to tell the comments I'm making on your submissions. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, send me an email, and then maybe we can walk through it better. I will try to see if I can also maybe make a screenshot. I've got to be careful about that because I don't want to show anybody's grade or anything like that, so I don't really know how to do that exactly yet. But when you're in Canvas and you see a score, then investigate it further and try to find the icon that will then allow you to click on it. It'll take you to my comments. It will basically show your assignment with all of my comments. Sometimes I'll write comments in text, or I'll have a little yellow sticky type note off to the side that will show the comment as well. If you have any questions about anything, just send me an email. I do prefer emails over notifications in Canvas. The reason why is because I'm not always at my computer, and if you send me an email, I can respond more quickly back to it directly, whereas with Canvas, I do have an app on my phone, but it doesn't always work properly, and truthfully, I would just prefer the email. So my email address is on the syllabus. All right, so we are now looking at blogs. So we're starting to get toward more of the news writing, and the blogs are one part of our job as a journalist, as well as PR practitioners. Public relations the field uses blogs quite a bit to help maybe pitch a product or their client more, or to help explain more about their product or their client. So these blogs are very helpful tools for us. So we're going to just kind of go through some of the main points of them, and then I'll explain more in detail your assignment as to what you are to do for your blog assignments throughout the semester. Okay. Whoops, let me back up. There we go. Okay. So what is a blog? Well, if you've read your chapter, you will know basically a blog is just a website that has some sort of, it's almost, some of the posts are written in essay form that provides reflections, maybe some comments. We like to look at it as basically an online personal journal. Now, let's translate that to journalism. How does that really impact journalism? Well, journalists, say, for instance, who cover sports, They're going to cover maybe the game, and they will give a news story for the game. But maybe they met somebody at the game. Maybe there was one of the, maybe a former basketball star there, and that reporter got to meet him and talk to him. That could be a possibility for a blog post. It gives the reader another perspective into something, or offers the reader additional content. Okay. Sometimes too, journalists who cover maybe meetings, say for instance city council meetings, and they will give the news story in the most objective way as possible, but maybe they want to offer their readers some additional insights that were just not appropriate for a news story. That's where they can do that in the blog. Okay. So you will see that some blogs are more like essays. They're going to comment on news or issues, or just offer additional topics that happen to be there at the same time they might be covering something. Okay. Blogs have had a pretty neat history. They are basically a form of publishing content online, and the software programs have made this easy over time for basically anyone now to publish a blog. It's no longer just the techie people. It's anybody who has access to a computer. And if those of you who have already set up your WordPress account, you probably saw just how easy it was to set one up. Blogs made their appearance around the mid-1990s. It was in 1999 that Pyra released Blogger, and that is still used today. In fact, I use it for a couple of my blogs as well. It's simple to set up, and you also have access to Blogger through Google, through your apps in your Murray State news account, or excuse me, email account. So you can actually access Blogger that way as well and set up one. But I think WordPress is still just easier to use, and just even its interface is more friendly for the reader. Blogging mostly was done by people who worked in technology, as well as those who had hobbies in certain things. So their posts were short and informative. Now, the posts today should continue to be short and informative, but they are maybe just a tad bit longer, okay? Usually just a few paragraphs is all they are. It wasn't until after 9/11 when we started to see blogging really take some form, and we started noticing the first-person accounts of news events, people really chronicling what they were seeing, and they were providing commentary on political issues. And then in 2002, we had several thousand weblogs being launched, and that's according to Technorani. That site tracks blogs. So that might be a good site if you ever want to see what blogs are out there. You can go and try to check some of those out. And then it just kept growing over time. 2008, we had more than 100 million blogs. And then we started to see blogging among teens starting to drop. And we can credit that with social media. Social media in a lot of ways is microblogging. We're just throwing out little spurts of information or commentary or opinions. In a lot of ways, it's still like an online journal, but it's what I would call microblogging at that point. When blogs were going on, when they first surfaced, news organizations, and some of them were reluctant to have reporters have blogs. For the reason because reporters, if they're going to offer their commentary on issues, then how that might reflect on their news stories. Well, the thing is, nowadays we're trying to establish relationships with our audiences. So that's why now we see more news organizations having blogs for their reporters. I came from Clarksville, Tennessee, so the Leaf Chronicle, some of the reporters there would have blogs and comment on some issues of the beats that they were covering. A lot of Gannett newspapers have their reporters doing that as well. So we are now seeing news organizations embracing blogging more than ever. So we have columnists and reporters all setting up personal blogs to talk about their beats. Again, trying to establish more of a relationship with their readers. Not only are we using blogs to establish those relationships, but blogs also are becoming valuable sources for us as journalists, especially when news breaks. we might see that again on Facebook or on Twitter, and we can build on top of that. So we have more of a symbiotic relationship between mainstream media and blogs now. Citizens who blog, we see them as news tipsters for us. And then we can check those blogs often and help us to develop our stories better. And blogs also provide insight into readers' and viewers' concerns, sources for feature stories as well. These two sites here, again, blogger.com, that's one of the sites where you can establish a blog, but they might have some blog possibilities you might want to visit. Cyberjournalist.net is another one as well. Okay. There are ethical concerns when using blogs, and I've touched on those a little bit already. For instance, blogs have created citizen journalists. That begs the question, how trustworthy then are the bloggers? Somebody even pointed this out in the Future of News assignment. I think a couple of you did. But our credibility is becoming more of an issue. We're just reading things online, and we're not really being critical as to whether it's reliable or accurate or even valid. So we have to really be cognizant of what we are reading online. That means we now have to fact check a lot of information. We have to verify what we see in blogs and social media. How we do that? Well, we're just going to interview other people. We're going to turn to see where we can find anything documented, etc. One of the things I always stress in my classes is that all information published or posted on a website, and really everything on the internet, is copyrighted. Even if it does not have any type of copyright symbol, it doesn't matter. Everything on the internet is copyrighted. So if you were to use any information from a blog, let's say you're working on a news story, you come across a blog that gives some great insights, you have to be able to attribute that information. Really, you probably should try to contact the author of that blog for permission to even use the information in your news story. But we have to make sure that we know that everything online is copyrighted. So we always have to seek permission and attribute. And just a question I want you to think about, just, as you are working on your blogs, or even as you are reading information online, is it ethical for journalists to write blogs that express their personal opinions on the news? There's still debate about that today. Bloggers have the same institutional press protection as mainstream media does. And the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, I believe this ruling came down in early 2014. It was either late 2013 or early 2014. And the case was Obsidian Finance Group versus Cox. But that was the main ruling. Now, I have put a long URL address on here where this article is located, but if you were to just Google Ninth Circuit bloggers, this, or even the case, that should pop up and you can read more about that. But know that bloggers now have the same defamation protections as our mainstream institutional press does. Exploring more on the ethics in journalism, newspapers that do decide to allow their reporters to maintain a blog, they may have some sort of quality control process in doing that. Now, blog postings do not go through necessarily the same copy editing protocol like a news story would, okay? It might, but it might not. Now, some publications are requiring that the blog post be edited before being made public. Which is really not a bad practice, not a bad practice at all. However, it's still making sure that the integrity of the voice in the piece is still protected. And then some newspapers have their own blog that they can oversee and maintain on their own. The Washington Post is one of those. They maintain a separate blog. It's not their news website. It is a blog, and it allows the reporters to give more insight into an issue, but the newspaper will edit that and maintain it as well. I have to admit, when you are searching for blogs, those to me are the most preferred. So again, like I said, the Washington Post has a really great news blog on their site. Again, the Leaf Chronicle is one of those, and there is a URL address if you'd like to visit that, as well as I provided one for the Washington Post. When we use blogs, in a lot of ways, blogs are becoming too like another version of the letter to the editor. If you think about newspapers and magazines, if you were to flip through some of the content in the early section of that news product, you might see a letter to the editor, especially in the print version. With a blog, this allows people to react to a reporter's story, and then they can post it right then and there. Now, for a lot of journalists, the story just doesn't end with a publication. The blogs allow us to continue that dialogue with our audience. Some of the problems that have come up with news organizations having blogs is that some readers will post offensive comments. We call it in the blogging community, those are called trolls. And then spammers is another issue. So my point in all of this is that if a news organization, or even if you are going to maintain a blog, you do have to check it regularly to make sure we're not having offensive comments out there, and that, you know, we're not being overridden with a lot of spam. Okay, so there is some maintenance that we have to do on our end. We can't just post our opinions and our essays and things like that and be done with it. We still have to be monitoring it to make sure it is still relaying quality content. As I mentioned earlier, PR and marketing, they rely on blogs as well. In fact, PRSA, which is the Public Relations Society of America, has an online media room, and they do some blogs as well. Blogs are probably just as useful for PR and marketing as much as they are for journalists. Especially with PR, it is really a mainstay type tool. It's something that they really rely on as part of their rich media mix to allow them to promote and publicize more about their client or the product that they are helping to promote. So, how do we write a blog? One of the ways that we're really wanting to construct our blog entries is that think of it as an online conversation you are having with the reader. These are instances where you can use first person. You know, you can talk about, you know, yourself. You can say, I like this because, you know, so you can do that. But the entry still needs to be professional, and it needs to have some sort of news dimension. What do I mean by that? Well, if you remember last week, we talked about the news values. Is it helpful for the reader? You know, does it show the reader some impact? Is it timely? You know, so there still needs to be some sort of quality of news to it. Okay. Some other tips. You're going to want to be brief. Now, in journalism, a lot of our news stories, that's one of the things we're going to be working on over time in this course is how to be brief in our news stories. A lot of times journalists, especially beginning journalists, they feel like they have to write long and write a lot. No, journalism is succinct, very short. It gets to the point quickly, and that's one of the things we're going to be working on. So our blog entries really are only going to be a few paragraphs. What's a few paragraphs? 5 to 7 paragraphs maybe. You're going to use simple sentences, extremely simple sentences. Those and simple sentences are those who have a subject verb. They follow that order, subject verb format. Okay. Also, we want to be focused. We have to have a main idea in our story. So don't take forever in getting to the main point of the blog. And of course, before you even post anything in this class, you need to check spelling, grammar, AP style. Now, we have not gotten to the AP style book yet. However, you have the book. So now I encourage you to use the book when you are writing. There is no method in using the AP style book. You just need to be a little adventurous and a little curious and just kind of go through the book and see some of the words that how we treat things. For instance, internet, always an uppercase I. Okay, I did notice that in some of the Future of News essays. Some of you had it uppercase, some of you did not. It is uppercase I. Email, it is just E-M-A-I-L. There's no dash in between. There used to be. AP Style did used to follow that, but they changed it. So like I said, we'll talk more about Stylebook, but I need you to start using it more on your own. Again, check spelling and grammar. If I see those errors, I do take off points for that, okay? So you're really going to have to be very conscientious. Again, get somebody else to proof your work for you too, and to help you with that. Somebody you trust, somebody you know who is good in the English language and can command it very well. Now, if you have not decided on what your blog is going to be, these are some exercises we can go through real quickly that will help you to narrow down what it is you want to write about. So first, you just need to consider a subject. Basically, what do you want to write about? And then it comes down to a theme, which is more of a specific angle and an area of focus. And then an objective. And that's what do you want to accomplish in each of your entries. Okay? There are going to be 5 total blog entries throughout the semester. So each one needs to have an objective. Now the subject is just really, it's the broadest area of your writing. It's basically a word or two. So I've given you some questions to kind of help you. What are you passionate about? In what topic do you have expertise or a desire to learn? What could you write about for a year or really a semester without running out of ideas or energy? Again, I posted some examples in Canvas already. One of my favorite ones to come across my eyes so far is about a year ago, one of my students did it on Pinterest. I think maybe I liked it a lot because I was starting to use Pinterest more, but she really had some great ideas in each of her blog posts. She had an objective. What could she show the reader something new about Pinterest that might be useful for them in how to navigate that social media site? So she would do that. But you might want to just spend a few minutes just brainstorming some one-word answers to the questions I just posed to you. Just don't take too long. Don't really overthink it. Just start writing down some things that come to your mind. And then once you've got a good list, maybe 3 to 5, then pick one, and only one. Your blogs have to be about the same subject each time. You cannot start on, say for instance, cooking, and then another blog go to sports. No, it has to be the same throughout the entire semester. And then once you have your subject chosen, then you just narrow it down into a theme. So think of it like a subset of your main topic. It's some sort of particular area of concentration. So to discover this, you ask yourself, how can I break this subject down into various components? What do I want to concentrate on exactly? Let's take cooking, for instance. Cooking is really broad. But maybe I can narrow it down and talk about it be cooking for the athlete. Okay, so that would be more of a narrow focus there. So just spend a few minutes. You can mind map or just list some key phrases that describe various angles of your topic. And then once you do that, you just pick one that makes the most sense and that you think is even doable for this course, and something that can inspire a lot of writing ideas. And then once you do that, that's where we can then have for every blog that you have, it has an objective. The main takeaway, what is the purpose of writing this today? So that's the overall approach to this step. And basically at this point, you're just kind of listing maybe 5 different blogs that you could do on your theme, okay? And maybe some goals that you really want to do with this blog. For instance, are you wanting to grow in authority with the field that you've chosen? Or if you're just wanting to make a good grade in this class, that's fine too. But whatever your overall goal is with each blog, just keep that in mind as you are writing those. Okay, just a few more blog tips to kind of help you. You still want to be accurate and fair. Now, a lot of this is probably going to be some of your opinions, and that's fine, but those still need to be based in some sort of fact and some sort of accuracy. You also want to be conversational. Okay, again, you're trying to establish some sort of relationship with your audience. You also want to target your audience. This might maybe knowing what your audience likes to read about, what they might want to see more in depth. So always take your audience into account. For every blog post, you will need to have a headline. So make sure that one is written. And a headline needs to have, some good keywords that are going to grab the reader's attention. In your blog, you are free to add links to other websites or other blogs. You can post photos in those too, include some audio or video, anything that's relevant to that post, that particular post that you are writing. That is great. I think that makes it more media rich, and it will give readers additional content to use. Also, feel free to add a question at the end. And I didn't finish that last bullet, and I apologize. But just add a question or thought at the end that's going to that might encourage the reader to want to put a comment on your post. So, if you haven't done so, basically your assignment this week is to set up your blog on WordPress.com. And I've already created all the information in Canvas as to what you need to do with this assignment. Now, your first blog entry is going to be due no later than 5 p.m. February 6th. So don't try to send it to me at 5:05 by email. I will not take them. If it's not in Canvas, I can only give you a 0. So again, we've got to be more intentional with our deadlines and meeting those. Now, how I want you to do this. Yes, I want you to post your entry on your blog, but I also want you to put a copy in Word document and post it to Canvas. This is what I tell students. You should always write it in Word first. Write it in a Word document first. That way you can spell check. That way you can have easy access to editing it. Okay, so always do it in Word document first. Once you are satisfied, then copy and paste it into your blog field. Okay, take that Word document you created, then upload it to Canvas. All right. Always make sure that your Word document, in addition to your blog, still have your headline. I need to see that headline. I might not always go to your blog address. Okay, so just know that. Sometimes I will go onto your blog and just look at it from time to time and try to offer some suggestions. Maybe if the colors are too loud or too bold, I might make a suggestion with that. Maybe if the photo doesn't come across very well, I might let you know that as, in addition to that. So your Word document that you upload to Canvas must include 3 things: the headline, the URL address of your blog, and then your actual blog entry. Okay, those 3 components every time in a Word document, every time. And again, use the AP style book. We will have a discussion on that, I believe. If not next week, it will be the week after. But until then, start using it. Start becoming friends with it. Okay, and I believe that is it. If you have, again, any questions, feel free to send me an email. All right, if you are on campus and want to stop by at my office, that's fine too, or give me a call. All right, thank you. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to seeing all of the interesting blogs that you all will put out for us. Thanks.